Yeah, G8YTZ M0JCF in the Cray Valley net. Morning Justin, morning David. Looks a bit thin on the ground today, but it is Father's Day, and one of my daughters doesn't live at home and the other daughter's over in Wales, so until this afternoon there's not a lot going on here to sort of make me say no, not today. But I've had messages from them, so that's good. Today I'm using the FT736R. I'm using my 9-element LFA. 1 minute, I'm a bit off frequency. Shouldn't really adjust this on the fly. But anyway, yeah, I'm on the FT 730R. 736R. Right, we'll start again, shall we? Because I've waffled. FT736R. This one's got the, well, obviously it's 2 metre 70 sems, but it's also got the 6 metre and 23 centimetre modules, both of which I haven't tested yet. I haven't got antennas. I haven't even got dummy loads or meters for 23 sems, so I can't really check the output. Normally I'd have an SR100 amplifier. That's the micro set VHF amplifier. Give me 100 watts plus, but I didn't think I'd need it for this. Currently beaming west from a 9-element LFA, so I'd give people reports, but to be honest, we're all on top of each other. You know you're going to be 5 and 9 even off the back of the beam. I think, Justin, you're off the back of my beam. David's probably in front of it. I've been working some sporadic E on 10 meters this week. Nothing too strong. I've taken now to listening to the beacons between about 28 160 and 28 300. I do listen for the beacons, and when I listen, you know, if I hear beacons, especially if several of them are out of Spain or several of them are out of Italy, you get an idea of which direction you could be receiving your replies from, and whether it's worth calling. I normally as well hear the beacons out of Scandinavia, so you've got various ones out of Norway, Sweden, Finland. So it once again gives you an idea, you know, are the signals going to be coming from the Baltic area or the other area. Having said that, it doesn't always work like that. The other day I had 4 beacons out of Italy, and I thought, well, you know, if I'm calling CQ10, I'm bound to get some Italians. First one out of the bag was a German up in Hamburg, which is on the Baltic coast, or, you know, northern Germany. So, you know, it's not an exact science, but a fun thing to do. Beacons, everyone forgets the beacons, and then you know, complain, oh, the bands are dead, the bands are dead. But when you think some of these beacons are running a vertical antenna with just 10 watts and you're receiving them, I don't know, 5 and 3 and 9, obviously readability 5, Santiago 3 will be the signal, and then 9 is the tone. I mean, they've always got good tones coming out of those beacons. Anyway, I think that's a bit of waffle there just to get things going, and I think I'm handing it round to David, G0KPZ, and if once again, like Justin said, if you leave a bit of a gap, because you never know, somebody might be calling in. G0KPZ M0JCF in the Cray Valley, Sunday morning, 2 metre net.
It's your turn. Just quick break, see if there's anybody else who wants to join the Cray Valley net this Sunday morning. No? Okay, David, you take it. G0KPZ, G8YTZ.
Yeah, from G0KPZ. Yeah, I was sitting here just in case someone called in. So, radio-wise, not much here. I have tried listening to all bands at different times during the week, and I haven't been successful. Maybe I just picked my time. It's actually, I haven't noticed, as it's been for the last few weeks, that there's a lot more activity later on in the evening. But I've not been up late, or in fact, I've not been up even early. Sometimes I've been gone to bed quite early these days. So, and I've been very tired, so I haven't been on in the evenings. So it's the daytime where I'm around, and I've tried to listen. point about the beacons, Mark. I have a few spot frequencies on the radio, at the beacon frequencies. So one of the first things I do when I'm checking the band is just to whiz through the beacons. And if I hear something, I think, hello, it's, there's going to be some activity. And as you say, it's quite surprising how well some of those beacons are received when the conditions are right. But apart from that, I haven't done anything at all on radio other than a bit of listening. I don't think I've even worked anybody this week. But there you go. What other activities? Been doing a bit of painting. That's, pictures, not walls or ceilings. Trying to catch up on some painting for a few paintings some paintings that I'm trying to put together with a hope of at some point doing some sales, but also a couple of paintings for friends that they wanted. I've got some more that I've got to do this week, so I'm going to be doing some today. Had a text from a couple of my kids, and they're all miles away, so I won't be seeing any of them. One of them's abroad at the moment, so pretty quiet day, I suspect, here, but that's fine. I don't mind. I'll just sit here and that's what I often do. While I'm painting, I'm just listening to the band. So I do spend a lot of time listening. But like I say, during the days, I've either picked the wrong bands or the wrong times because I haven't heard much at all, really. So there you go. Anyway, I've been waffling now. I'll pass it back to you, Justin, and leave a break in case we've got any joiners. So G8YTZ to take it from G0KPZ and the Cray Valley group.
Yeah, from G8YTZ and the tiny group we have on this morning. It's a Fathering Sunday or whatever. Is that the right term? I don't know. It's Mothering Sunday, I know, but maybe it's just Father's Day, I don't know. And I had, for my dad, I had delivered a Valerie, patisserie Valerie cake, which it's interesting how they arrive, actually. It's a miracle of modern day food packaging. It arrives in a polystyrene insulated box with dry ice, and it's very deep frozen, and which I found bizarre to start with, but actually works really well. You take it out of the box, and then you put it into the fridge and leave it there for more than 24 hours, basically, and it defrosts naturally in the fridge, and of course saves you electricity on the fridge because it has to defrost and keep the fridge cool. And so it seems to confuse my dad, this thing. It really is. I got this cake sitting in the fridge. His short-term memory is not quite what it was. And he's looking at it, wondering what to do with it. So we'll go and sort him out later today. I bought one for my dad. Of course, what do you do with all the dry ice in the plastic bags? Well, it says don't touch it and chuck it away. But no, you can't resist a bit of dry ice for some scientific experiments. And my daughter, when she got hers, she said, "Oh, dry ice!" So she had it in a bowl of water, created clouds of carbon dioxide smoke as it boiled off. It lasted for ages. It created clouds and clouds of smoke. And I must admit, I did the same. I got one for my wife for her birthday a couple of years back, and they're quite successful, actually. So anyway, I think it's amused him somewhat anyway. So we'll go down there and help him eat it later on. He rang me up this morning. I've got this cake. So, yeah, that was the idea. It was supposed to be a little surprise. I think it's confused him more. But there we go. In radio terms, I might have said this on Friday, actually. If people went on Friday, then I on the 4-meter net, I got the Pico tuner working. I've just put some more new firmware on it, and I'm quite got that going yet, but I will in a few minutes. Yesterday was the National Radio Centre evening Christmas dinner, annual dinner. that in Milton Keynes. On the way, we passed by Sandy from another Tesla owner who's selling a roof rack kit, an official one for fit Julie's car. So I picked that up. It's really nice roof bars, and it's Tesla original ones. And we paid about 20% of the new price actually. So I was really pleased with that deal. And then we went on to the NRC, and of course the Bletchley Park had their 40s weekend this weekend, where people come up dressed up in the 1940s and people in army uniforms and all this kind of stuff from the era. The GB1 SOE was in the reception at Bletchley Park, and normally it's outside because of the rain showers in the reception area. And they were using an HRO, and the transmitter was one of these spy transmitters, and an AR-88 we got out, our working AR-88 we got out as well. And yeah, no, it was a good day. We had over 600 visitors into the NRC yesterday, so it was a really, really, really good day. It always helps when it rains, actually. It brings people in the house. You get more visitors when it rains, or especially when you get rain showers, they all pile into the nearest hut. And of course, we had about 10 volunteers there yesterday because of the evening dew. Lots of people turned up in the afternoon, including myself. And Julie went round and did some swing dancing, and she went to the new intelligence factory displays and the theatre there as well. So she enjoyed that. Anyway, it's enough from me now. This is G8YTZ hosting the Cray Valley Net this Sunday morning. I'll leave a break, please, for anybody else who'd like to join in on the net. All are welcome. We might persuade you to join the radio club, but all are welcome, as long as you have a license, of course. There's a little got you there. But nevertheless, our club meetings are every other Thursday. You can look at the CVRS website, and you're always welcome to come along to meetings to find out more about amateur radio. If you're a shortwave listener, you want VHF listener, I should say. Right, so over to you, Mark, but with a break for any other stations that we want to put onto the list this morning. This is G8YTZ.
And nothing was heard. G8YTZ M0JCF in company with G0KPZ for Cray Valley, keeping it alive for the club. But one thing I would ask the pair of you is an audio report. That will be the first thing, because I don't think I've had an audio report from this radio. The microphone I'm using is a Yaesu microphone. It's the MH1. I forget where I got this microphone, but when I got this radio, it didn't come with a microphone, but the MH1 works just fine as far as I know. I have used it on SSB, 2 meters SSB, and yeah, it seems to work well. Like all old radios, probably a few hundred hertz off, especially on SSB. Probably is on FM, but a few hundred hertz. Probably no one, unless you've got a band scope to say for definite, no one's really seeing or hearing that. A comment about a G0KPZ only like doesn't hear anything all week. I tell you what that is. It seems to be a phenomena that never used to happen way back in the day. Now, of course, I've only been legally licensed since 2017, but I've been a shortwave listener and a somewhat ham operator since 1974. And way back in the day, you constantly, when you turned on the radio, you heard people CQing. Admittedly, not as many as today, but you could go 40 meters, 20 meters, whatever, and you'd hear somebody somewhere CQing. That's less prevalent these days. 10 meters in particular, I hear it all the time, and I think it is quite a well-known thing. People say, "Oh, I went on 10 meters, completely dead, flat as a pancake, nothing on the band scope, blah blah blah," and you think to yourself, "Well, hang on a minute, I sat on that same band as you." Now, all right, we've got to get skip zones into the conversation and that, you know, people will miss stuff if you're in a skip zone, especially with sporadic E. You know, you could be in a skip zone and some other bloke just 20 miles away could be working station after station and you're not hearing them. You know, we know why that happens, but I think the amount of people report the band was dead, the band was flat, blah, 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 they're all listening. I mean, they're all listeners because they're reporting the band is flat. Now, just the other day, it was quite interesting that I picked up, I switched on my IC 7300. I haven't used it for a long time, so I thought I'd better give it an airing. And I switched it on. And 10 meters, and sure enough, it's got a band scope, and the band scope's quite flat. But when I spun down the dial to a nice bright spec, there was a beacon. I forget where the beacon was now. I haven't got my logbook in front of me, otherwise I'd be able to tell you. It was possibly a German beacon. So I thought to myself, well, I can hear the beacon. I think it was a 50-watt beacon. I can hear the beacon, therefore, you know, there is propagation to southern Germany. I believe it was around the Munich area. Anyway, I started calling CQ 10 meters, and do you know what? Like buses, I count them, 4 stations came back, all from Israel. Now, obviously that wasn't sporadic E, that was F layer because of the distance. Could have been double E, could have been. But the very fact that it was in the direction, now I've got omnidirectional antenna for 10 meters. So, you know, it was, you know, like they were coming from the direction of where I heard the German beacon, you know, due southeast, we'll say, without, you know, getting precise. But it was quite interesting. One of them was particularly weak. He was portable, but, you know, I had a couple of really strong ones, and one of them, I've forgotten his call sign, he was a 4X1, I believe, Ron. I mean, he was particularly good and particularly stable, about 5 and 5 nearly all of the time. And we talked for a good 5 minutes or more. But you know, the very fact is, I had 4 contacts out of Israel on this flat dead band, and that's because all of these people, including the 4 from Israel, they were all just listening. They were all looking at their band scopes. They were just spinning the dials or whatever, and nothing was happening. So what they do is shrug their shoulders, turn off, go and do something else, which is fair enough. But you know, for every 10 people that are reporting the band is closed or the band is dead or the band is flat, someone like me is calling incessantly. And you know what I normally do, I normally give it 10 minutes. I do give it a good go. I do give it 10 minutes. I don't just call CQ 10 meters for like 1 minute, 2 minutes and think, oh no one's replying, because, you know, statistically, somebody, especially using a non-band scoped radio, you know, they're either not switched on or not tuning across or not looking at their scope. So I think that's half the problem nowadays, is a lot of people are listening. People are just, they want it to come to them, which is fair enough. And but the amount of hams that we've got now, especially in the UK, you know, as of late, you know, there should be a lot more people picking up those microphones and calling. We should be in a position where it's quite difficult to find the space. 40 meters, you're quite right as well, David. 40 meters this week was, in fact, the last couple of weeks hasn't been brilliant for inter G, at least on my antenna. I'm using a random 90-foot long wire, which is about 25 feet off the ground. So it's a fantastic Envis antenna. And generally I tell people, you know, with 10 watts, 5 watts, I can work the whole of the UK, Ireland, Scandinavia, Europe. I generally don't have any problems, but as of late, you know, it has been, but then, you know, the sun has been incredibly active. And of course, we're coming up to solar maximum next year. and then of course it drops off the other side. So we've got probably another 3 or 4 years of relatively good propagation. I mean, the next year might be fraught with flares and coronal mass ejections and everything, so you might assume, right, we're at sunspot maximum, therefore, I won't, my logbook will be full up. But the other side of the coin is, of course, with solar maximum, you're also going to get everything the sun can throw at us, maybe causing blackouts, noise, and God knows what else. But then, there's alternative things to do. If radio is your main thing and you've got no other hobbies, there are other ways of faffing around with the radio. That's the other thing I've been doing, is this week I've started getting stuck into radio restoration. Those that know me know that I've bought a hell of a lot of old radios, KW, Yaesu, Swan, etc. I've started making headway into those, and yesterday I was delved inside. It was quite sad, really. I got inside my summer camp FL100B transmitter. I thought, right, I've had it 2.5 years now and I haven't touched it, and I've got them both. I've got the FL100B and the FR100B receiver, so I thought, get into the transmitter. So I powered it up, and everything lit up nice, and nice glow from all the valves, and I did all of the settings, and I keyed up, and what happened was the cathode current went to maximum. It pegged. So I did everything I could to reduce it slightly, and on into a dummy load. I was seeing 50 watts, and while I was faffing around, I heard the classic pfft, and I thought to myself, oh, here we go, and I sort of unkeyed and everything, but by then the magic smoke was wafting through the garage. So I opened up the radio, looked underneath at the back at the PA stage, where I thought I saw the smoke coming from, and there was a coil there wound on a ceramic former, very tiny, on 2 of the pins of the final output valve, and it was crispy. So I thought to myself, oh well, there's the problem, I've burnt out a coil. And so what I did was, I unwound the coil. It was 13.5 turns. I think it was 1 millihenry. But anyway, I unwound it. I found some enamelled copper wire of approximately, and this is where I might have gone wrong, approximately the right diameter. I didn't use a micrometer, so I should have done. Anyway, I wound 13.5 turns, soldered it all back in. But no, at this moment in time, going back to exactly what I was doing, I've got still 0 cathode current. So I obviously something else must have smoked. It doesn't smell acrid. You can't see anything visible. I don't know. I really need to do a valve swap as well. It might just be that the output valve has gone anyway. But looking at the circuit diagram, there's not too much round there, but everything else, inductors, resistors, etc., look okay. I never noticed any heating up of any filter capacitors or anything. So anyway, I don't know at this moment in time. So that's the other thing I've been doing. And David, I know you were talking about it last week, and you mentioned painting. Yeah, I'm a wannabe amateur artist, and I do, funnily enough, I do the Bob Ross wet on wet technique. I discovered Bob Ross on, I don't know, the Learning Channel, I think it was, way back maybe in the mid-90s, about the same time that the old man died. And I thought to myself, that's a great technique. That I like that. You can produce some really marvellous paintings very quickly, oil on canvas. But it wasn't until about 2002 that I thought, do you know what, I'm going to have a go at this. So I actually bought Bob Ross products. So his paints, I bought his liquid clear, which is effectively boiled linseed oil, liquid white, which is boiled linseed oil in titanium white, etc. I bought all of these brushes, which are hog's hair brushes, and I just got on and started smashing out paintings. Then I started experimenting, because obviously Bob Ross, there's 2 things about Bob Ross products. One, they're very expensive. compared to other oil painting products. And two, if you've seen the latest documentaries about Bob Ross and his son Steve, and how Steve and Bob were basically ripped off right royally and disgustingly by the Kowalski family. I won't line the pockets of the Bob Ross Corporation anymore. Effectively, they took the Bob Ross name, his actual name, and they've marketed it. And what they do is and I've been a victim of this, they actually prosecute people for using even the name Bob Ross. How about that? I know this because I was selling paintings on eBay around about 2010, and I was marketing them as in the style of Bob Ross. And do you know what? I had cease and desist from both eBay and the Bob Ross Incorporated. I had cease and desist. I was not allowed to sell my paintings with any reference whatsoever to Bob Ross. I even tried selling paintings. Now, bearing in mind, you should sell your paintings on your merit, you know, they should be sold as you, the artist. But I was obviously, you know, for hits, I was using the Bob Ross name. I was even using in my adverts, painting by Kent artists, blah, 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 using Bob Ross products. But the very fact that I used Bob Ross, even though I was effectively advertising their wares, I got the cease and desist for that one as well. And I was told by eBay, and what they did, they suspended my account for a brief time because I'd done it too many times. So I learnt my lesson. Just sell them as Mark Hales. There you go. They're Mark Hales paintings. If you like them, buy them. But yeah, so I've been doing quite a lot of Bob Ross style landscape paintings. And then I started sort of branching out using the wet on wet technique into other types of work. When I was a drag racer, when I was drag racing motorcycles, I was taking photographs of other drag racers and doing oil paintings, but more abstract, but you could see who it was and what they were doing using that technique. But I don't think it lent itself that well to that technique. They're great for doing floral designs, possibly animal designs, and definitely landscape. But no, it wasn't so good for other, at least, you know, I mean, I'm not a classically trained artist. I've got no O levels in it and that. And in fact, I didn't do art at school. I dropped out, you know, when you took your you took the lessons you wanted to do for the final 2 years. I dropped art as one of the subjects. Mistakenly, I took up French instead. That was the alternative, was French. I wish I'd now not done the French and maybe carried on with the art. But, you know, art teachers back then used to drive me nuts. This was the 1970s. They were all hippies. But there you go. I think I've covered everything there and had quite a long over, enough to wear this radio out. So around to you, David. G0KPZ in the group. We're from M0JCF.
KTZ, yeah, I've been making copious notes, Mark, while you were doing that. Loads of stuff there that rang bells with me. I'll start with the last bit and work backwards. Yeah, I only got 2 O levels at school in the 60s. One was English. I reckon you should get that if you speak it or write it. And the other one was art. I had to choose between French and art in my last year. In the 5th year at school, and I chose French, and I got 2 or 3 months in, and I thought, I don't like French, and why am I not doing art? Because I've always drawn. So I went and I asked to change, and there was a big flap about it, especially as the French teacher was the assistant headmistress as well. I didn't like it, but the art teacher, whose name is still very clear to me, Miss Hart, she was wonderful. She actually came and argued my case for me, and I switched, and I got a good grade in art, and I always think that was a really good move, because I'm pretty sure I would have flunked French. Although I was all right at French actually, it was Latin that I wasn't very good at. But I reckon I'd have flunked it because I didn't do any work for 5 years in secondary school. I just did sports, athletics and boxing was all I did. And later on, when I started work, the fact that I had 2 O levels made a difference to me starting off. I'd probably caught up eventually, but it actually helped me when I first got a first job. So that was all right. Yeah, the Bob Ross stuff. I've seen those YouTube videos, Mark, about how he was treated, and I can 100% agree with you. Interestingly, Bob Ross never invented, I believe, I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe that the Bob Ross style was not invented by Bob Ross. He was taught by someone else, that style. But he made it famous because he marketed it very well. The Bob Ross style does not suit my style at all. I'm not saying I'm a classical style artist. The one famous artist who I know paints in a similar manner to me is David Hockney, and by that I mean I tend to work on areas of the painting and nearly finish them and move on to another area, rather than the classic style of putting a ground on and then doing the background and working up. Obviously in oils I work from dark to light and from thin to thick and all the usual stuff, so the wet on wet technique does not suit me. However, having said that, interestingly, I did used to like the Bob Ross programs. I don't do landscapes or the stuff that he does, and he used to drive me nuts sometimes with endlessly painting mountains, which used to drive me bonkers sometimes. But the one thing that I do use is the wet on wet for my skies, because especially for a gradated sky, from dark blue to light blue, or from blue through yellow to pink or whatever, depending on what the background is. So if I'm doing a fairly plain sky, plainish, I tend to use the wet on wet. And the way I do it is I've got a great big tin of titanium white, because I think I use more titanium white than anything else. What I tend to do is put a fair amount of it in a container, and then I thin it down with just low odour white thinners until I get it to the consistency I want, and then I use that as effectively in the same way that you use liquid white, and it's a million times cheaper. And then I just use ordinary art supplies for everything, because I tend to have a go at everything. I do colour pencils, ordinary pencils, gouache, watercolours, acrylics, oils. I have a bash at everything. Sometimes mix it up a bit depending on what's going on. I'm forever being told off because I, in inverted commas, pollute my watercolours by sticking white gouache all over the place in order to fix them. That's because I paint in watercolours like I paint in oils, which is completely bonkers. So that was that. What else did I note on here? Your FL or whichever that radio was you were talking about with the coil you wound. I assume you've checked capacitors to make sure none of them have gone open circuit or high or something. Because in those radios, as you would obviously well know, it's the caps that are the first things to suspect, but you know that. I haven't got a band scope. I'm breaking this setting for the dog. I haven't got a band scope either, so I have to tune around to see what's on there. And I completely agree with you that you've got to call CQ if you want to be if you you want to be sure of what's going on. But I was probably thinking more particularly of 40, where people do, generally speaking, they do spend a lot of time calling CQ, and 40 is generally, buzzing into G during the day, in the week, especially with the square activations and that on, I think, what is it, 160? Is the classic channel, and they've got some regular, quite a few regular nets on there, and there are people on there that I hear every day, just having chats with people, and they've been absent. So my assumption is that the band conditions have been poor. What else was there? Yeah, I'm trying to find out what's wrong with one of my radios, because I might be thinking of selling something to generate some cash now I'm at work. Now I'm out of work. One of them's my FT101ZD. I've got this strange behaviour in that I switch it on and it's dead, but obviously it's lighting up, but it's dead, and the frequency display is reading something like 910050 or something. And if you press, I don't know if you're familiar with the front panel of FT101ZD, it's got a set of push buttons at the bottom where you select the VFO, internal, automatic virtually, and then internal, external, and two or three other buttons that I've never ever used, even though I've owned and run these things for God knows how many years. I only ever did. If you push one of the other buttons, not always, but the majority of times, the radio then bursts into life. So that's condition number one. That's the first funny behaviour. The second behaviour is, again, not always, but sometimes, it then goes to the right frequency, but it gradually drifts upwards, 1 kilohertz every couple of seconds. Quite linear, not erratic, like as if it's drifting. But it doesn't always do that, so I don't know whether that's linked or whether there are two faults. And my suspicion is that it's a bad contact, and that there's just some level of, the contact is acting in such a way that it's gradually moving. It's not solid. So for the second time, I did it once and thought, I fixed it. I took the bottom cover off, and I sprayed switch cleaner into each of the 4 push button switches to see whether that will fix it or not. And also the wave change switch was, as they always are after not being used a lot, was a bit dirty. So I sprayed all the wave change switch wafers with switch cleaner. Now I thought I'd fixed it, and I'm going to go down again today to this shed and have a look to see whether it's, because I did it again yesterday. The drift seems to have gone, but I've still got the business where when you first switch it on, it's dead, and if you press the switch, it bursts into life. Or if you leave it on, sometimes after 5 or 10 minutes, not always, it'll come on. So I'm suspecting that there might be something more dodgy going on in there. So I might have a word with Steve, because ZPS, because he's got real good knowledge of all the various 101s, to see whether he can point me as to where would be a good starting point. Because right at the moment, I'm looking at it thinking, I don't even know where to start with this, because it's quite a complex radio and it's quite jammed in there. So there's a lot of stuff jammed into that little box, really. So that was that one. Yeah, the other one, Mark, you asked for audio report. Sounds really, really nice. I always did like those 736 Rs, I think they are, aren't they? The radios, they always look quite good to me. And yeah, as you say, if it's off a little bit on FM, I can't hear it. Usually, it needs to drift quite a bit, doesn't it, to give you that sort of segments on my little 817 here, no problem at all. Lovely signals, both of you. So I've waffled a bit now, but I blame you for that, Mark, because I'm just responding to your points. I've written them all down, I've looked at them, yeah, I've covered them. So back to you, Justin, and see if anybody else has joined us in between times. G8YTZ, take it from Z0KPZ and the Cray Valley Group.
Yeah, G0KPZ. This is G8YTZ. Anyone else to join the Cray Valley Group this morning?
Yes, Justin, G0FDP. He's been listening for a little while, but there's such a lot of rabbiting going on. I've been sitting here for quite a long time waiting to get in. Back to you.
Well, yeah, that goes for the territory, doesn't it, of ham radio, what have you. But good morning there, Fred. And why don't you take it over and do a bit of rabbiting yourself? And I'll quickly report. Mark S7, bit scratchy, not great, I'm afraid. Audio's fine though, no problem with the audio. And David S9 plus 10, and Frank, your S910, G8Y2.
Okay then, Justin, G8YTZ, G0FDP. Well, everybody is on at the moment. I've been listening, and they're all 5 and 9 plus 20, 30, even 40, some of that. No problem at all. We're all giving good signals. And I'm actually going to mention the radio that you're talking about there, Mark, is the Yaesu Fox Tango. You got the 7300, 736R. I used to have the 726R, which is the version before the one you've got there now. And the only problem I found with that is I had a bit of problem with the switching gear on the microphone, but I got Guy to sort that out for me, and I wasn't very happy with the radio itself. It's a big beast, built-in power supply in the actual radio, and it only generated 10 watts. That's what the earlier one only got 10 watts, but the version that they brought afterwards, the second version of the 726, was 20 watts or 30 watts, but there's a lot more power in the one that they brought out afterwards. And I just had the 77s module put in, didn't have anything else put in, because you could have had a 10 metre one put in for it, and obviously could have had the satellite one as well, but I did just have the 77s one, because in the days when we first started amateur radio back in the 80s and the early 80s and that, we used to use 77s quite a lot in them days as well, because I used to have a cross Yagi for 2 and 77. So that used to work on 77s and used to work on 2 meters. But in them days, you had a job to get a clear frequency to work on 2 meters. So what we did was go to 77s and work up there, and give a good good saying of ourselves. And used to work some good nets up there, but at the moment, I don't know whether 77s is that good now, but presumably it is, because there's a lot of other things on there as well as the 77s itself. And because 2 meters, when you listen on 2 meters, there's nothing at all. I don't call out CQ at the moment, no, and I do listen sometimes on 40 meters, and I do hear, I haven't called out CQ on it, but I do hear G6 INU. He's not far from me. He's down there in Sidcup, not far away, and he's usually on there most times. In the morning he's on, and he's working quite a lot of lads in Europe and that sort of thing. he does get a bit of a waffle on with those ones, so that he can get some response from the lads on 40 metres. Mind you, I went on 40 metres yesterday afternoon. And if I remember, Mark, you did say that there's a special event station on 7190. Was that a 7190? I think it was up in the high part of the 4 metre band. And I went up there and listened to it. I didn't hear anybody actually on that particular frequency, so I went down 500 hertz, and there was somebody on that one, but obviously not very loud. I could hear somebody there, not very loud. But obviously it may be in that same station, but this was late in the afternoon because that's been going all day, that one, hasn't it? If I remember right, you're saying that they're doing a day's worth of that. So at least I did listen in then, but not much on at all. I've tuned around, as one would say, as you'd say, Dave, KPZ, and tuned around. Not a lot on. Some of the stations that are on are not very loud to me, and it may be the fact that my system here at the moment with the G5RV is not perfectly tuned in to pick up some of these weaker signals, but we'll have to wait and see how it goes, and do what we can do. I know I have worked some stations years ago now on this G5RV, quite a long way away, such as Tasmania, Australia and that sort of thing, but I don't know, it may be the difference in the time of the day that you work them. The one I worked in Tasmania was in the evening, about 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, so it might have been, I don't know whether it's a long skip or was it a short skip we got to them, but there we are, that's how it seems to be. But I don't listen a great deal at the moment because I've got other things to do whilst I'm in my position at the moment. Right, now I've had a little waffle there, so I'll put it back round to you now then, Justin, because I obviously will be the last on the list, presumably, and you can go back to yourself and then start off at the top of the list again. From G0 to B, over to you, Justin, G8YTZ.
Yeah, J8YTZ and the group. So let's see if there's anybody else that's going to join. Any more latecomers? We're nearly 10 minutes towards the end, but anyone else out there? This is J8YTZ at the Cray Valley RS. Okay, yeah, no, I found it interesting the conversation about art. I didn't realise we had so many artists in the club, which is interesting. It's something I've never been able to. I appreciate it, but I can't draw to save my life. It's just something I cannot do. Never been able to. Never got past the stick insect drawing, and I was hopeless at school. The only thing I ever did was a sunset. So there we go. Every primary school, every picture I brought my mum home, she said, "What's that then?" It's a sunset. I think that's all I could draw. And anyway, that wasn't my thing, but I had other uses, I guess. That's the thing. Anyhow, anyway, back around, turn it around again. Round to you, Mark, M0JCF, and I'm afraid if you have a signal this week, it might be where you've been pointing, and I'm vertically polarised right now. J8YTZ.
Yeah, J8YTZ M0JCF. Justin, just a quick one. I swung the beam from west to southeast. How's the signal strength now? Bearing in mind there is the cross polarisation as well. Back to you.
Yeah, no difference at all. I mean, I can switch to horizontal myself. That's the other thing I can do, J8YTZ.
No, that's okay. I'll just faffing around, as I say. S7, S5, S9 plus 30. For what we're doing, it makes no difference whatsoever. And Frank, yes, you was bending the needle as well, mate. You're as well. Once again, everyone's relatively close. The only thing is, I think now, whereas Justin, you were off the back of the beam, and David, you were at the front, it's now like reversed. But I don't expect anything different. Just looking at the meter, I think I'm running about 10 watts. Yeah, this radio, Frank, this is the 736R and the 726R. Do you know, I see quite a few of those being sold at the Dover Rally a few weeks back, the 726Rs. This one, as standard, fixed, they come with 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and then the modules that have been added to this one are 6 meters and 23 centimeters. And so I haven't tried the 6 meters yet. I've got a 6 meter dipole in the loft with me, and I've been using the IC 7300 for 6 meters. I haven't tried this one on 6. 23 centimeters I haven't tried for several reasons, them being I haven't got an antenna for it, which is obviously isn't a problem. Very easy to make an antenna for 23 cents. Also, I haven't got a meter that goes that far, or a dummy load. Now, obviously, I've got homebrew dummy loads, and they're good up to VHF, even 70 centimeters, you know, that they work quite well. And yeah, I haven't got the meter to check the output at 1.3 gigs, or have I don't know. I'll have to check down in the garage. I may have a Wells meter that will cover 1.3 gigs. I'm not sure, but obviously I want a dummy load that will give me a good reading at that level as well. Of course, I could just plug in an antenna and see what happens. Have a tune around, have a listen. But anyway, that's that. That's the 726. And so I'm just going to go through the 726 to 736. G6INU, Frank. Yeah, that's Doug, isn't it? Doug, I've spoke to Doug hundreds of times. I call Doug the Sid Cup beacon on 40 metres. I tell you what, if you talk to people on the continent on 40 metres and you tell them you're in Sid Cup, first thing they say is, oh, I know someone else from Sid Cup in Kent. Oh, his name's Doug, but I can't remember his call sign. Or he's a G6, can't quite remember the call sign, don't remember his name. I think, well, you just said you talk to him all the time. But yeah, what I do, I always, whenever I say Sid Cup now, I always append the conversation with, and before you ask, yes, I've spoke to Doug many times. I heard him 2 days ago, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, Doug is very, very well known on 40 metres, morning, noon and night. Also, you know, we're talking about alternative hobbies. Yeah, he's a carpenter, isn't he? He makes furniture and stuff. Now, I haven't seen it. I think, if I remember rightly, some years ago, I looked at his QRZ page, and I'm sure he's got his carpentry there. Check it out. I may be wrong. I may be thinking of someone else. I know he does do carpentry, but I'm on about the QRZ page. But yeah, I believe he makes wooden furniture. So that's Doug. And 101ZD, yeah, I know the radio. I've had 2 of them. I've had the 101ZD, then I had the Mark III, which had the AM FM alternative. I think my one was fitted with the FM board, and I wanted to put an AM board in it, but I sold it in the end. And you're right, Steve ZPS is an authority on them, because he helped fix my 101ZD, not the Mark III, just the 101ZD before I sold it on. I do have a 101 at the moment, but with no letter at the end. I've got a real shoddy 101, which I bought at the Dover Rally again for 40 quid. And I bought it for 40 quid, and then Doug G0UKN, Guy G0UKN gave me one in bits, which I've dismantled for the parts. He actually gave me the power supply, the transformer from it, some time back, and I was going to make a power supply for one of my Swans. I think my Swan 350. I never got round to it. So yeah, more projects on the go. School exams. Do you know what? I actually got O-levels in English language. I got physics, chemistry, metalworking and geography, all O-levels. I got a grade 1 or whatever it was, CSE for mathematics. I could have got an O-level C, but I actually chose to do the CSE because pure mathematics, even though I got O-levels in chemistry and physics and metalwork, pure mathematics wasn't my thing, so I hedged me bets on, you know, let's push for a grade 1 CSE, which was equivalent to a C pass O level. Anyway, French, after 5 years of French, I didn't do very well. I got something like a grade 3 CSE. It was a mistake right at the beginning. Do you know what? I could have taken art or biology, and I wished, you know, like at the time, I wished I'd taken the biology, on reflection, now I'm older and wiser and art is a hobby, I wish I'd taken art. But you know, 45 years ago, I left school in 1979 with some good O levels. I got a good apprenticeship, and life has been very successful for me in many ways. So you know, it's all water under the bridge. I know when I did my BTEC in telecommunications, you know, we went above and beyond O level in some respects, especially with electrical theory, telecom switching, telecoms transmissions, and electronic theory. You know, it was sort of O level and above, and I got my ONC. I didn't bother doing an HNC. I couldn't be bothered with it at that point. We were doing block release 13 years, and it was a 3-year apprenticeship. 13 years, 13 weeks. So I'd had enough at that point. You know, I left school at 16 to start work, going to college for 13 weeks. For 3 years, I didn't like that. Or I had to go to North London College up at Holloway, and you know, I just thought myself, I don't want to be back at school at 16, 17, 18. But you know, it's a means to an end, and I was required to do it, obviously, for the apprenticeship. So I got my ONC. That was good enough. We mentioned earlier about the club and exams, etc. Or did we? Or is it the message I've seen from Dave, G4NOW? Good to see we've got 6 candidates already booked in for the fall course at Cray Valley. That's good news. 6 already signed up, 6 places left to fill. It would be great if they could fill those 6 places. Funnily enough, I know somebody who lives on the south coast that comes from the Dartford area. He's a 2E0. He's been a 2E0 since something like 2014. And he was saying to me at a barbecue just the other week, you know, I goes, I really want to do my full course. He goes, but I don't want to do like correspondence and all of that. I want to do a face-to-face. And I told him Cray Valley. And he said, yeah, I know Cray Valley. So I'll have to get onto him and say, look, you know, be quick because there's 6 places left. They may or may not get filled. So that'll be interesting. You said, I think it was Frank, you said, or was it you, David? You said about, oh no, I think it was you, David. You said about collecting the squares around Britain. That's Worked All Britain, isn't it? They're on 40 metres. They're normally on 7160. And in the evenings, they're on 3760. And I am actually a Worked All Britain book member. I've got my book in front of me now. I am book number 22628. And I got that when I was 2E0 ERX. I'm not a big active member. What it is I'll log the squares as and when, you know. If I remember to ask someone, do you know your Worked All Britain square? Likewise, they ask me. You know, I filled in a lot of squares, and I suppose back in the early days when I very first joined WAB, I was very enthusiastic. I would join them nets in the evening, and you know, especially if they got someone driving around mobile in squares which just no one lives, you know. So I was quite active, but no, I'm just an opportunist now. You know, it's just a personal thing. If I remember, I'll fill it in. And otherwise, you know, I'm not too bothered. You know, slowly, catchy monkey. I don't chase awards. I don't collect certificates. I don't collect anything like that. In fact, do you know what? I haven't even collected my certificate for winning the category of the true SDX, the TR Micro SDX competition. You know, Cray Valley, we did the construction competition, and I won it. Well, it'll be 2 years ago this July, I believe, and I still haven't collected my certificate for winning that. So I think I made it known. No, go on, you can do whatever you like with your certificate. Thanks very much. I do it for fun. I don't do it for recognition. And the Bob Ross pictures, you said, David, that the Bob Ross, what used to wind you up is you got fed up with him painting mountains. And I think that is the failing of the Bob Ross technique. was, in the end, the world and his dog were producing mountains, waterfalls, and cabins in the woods. And I think it is now very well known that if you could buy a Bob Ross painting, there is absolutely no guarantee it was one of Bob's. Unless you bought one from Bob Ross himself, there is absolutely no guarantee that, even signed by Bob Ross, because he just used to sign the name Ross. And in fact, Steve Ross's signature is identical. You've got, so you could spend 10,000 quid on a Bob Ross original, and it will turn out that actually one of his pupils painted it, because you know they run classes for the Bob Ross technique. And it's true, some of my paintings I've got on my Facebook page, I've got an album full of my wet on wet paintings, and some of them you could look at and think to yourself, oh, that's a Bob Ross. Well, no, it isn't actually, it's a Hales. But there you go. And that is the problem with them, is once you've painted a Bob Ross scene, and my wife said that I painted well over 100 landscape scenes, and originally I was copying Bob Ross from Bob Ross books, from the TV series, etc., and then in the end I was just doing them out of my head. But that is the problem with the Bob Ross technique. In the end, everyone is Bob Ross. And you said he obviously didn't invent the technique. No, I don't know who invented wet on wet. The wet on wet technique is a very, very old technique. Predates Bob Ross et al. But Bill Alexander, the German, the big German, he was the one who taught Bob Ross, and Bill Alexander had a TV series, etc. I had a couple of Bill Alexander books. I don't think Bill Alexander's wet on wet paintings, landscape paintings, were as polished as Bob Ross's, but you can see the technique, you know, and everything about it. The huge great palette knives, the specially cut brushes, big hog's hair brushes, 2-inch brushes, 1-inch brushes, etc. Another thing when it comes to painting, David, I don't know if you've ever tried it. I've tried and I've failed miserably so many times to do watercolour. I love watercolour paintings, and you know what? I've got several books here. I'm in my loft today, and I've got a very extensive library on all subjects, and I've got quite a few books of Jeff Kersey and Terry Harrison. They both used to have TV series, and they painted some fantastic watercolour scenes. And I thought, do you know what? I'd love to have a go at that. And as I say, I've got 3 or 4 of Kersey and Harrison watercolour how-to books, and some have got stencils in and all sorts. And do you know what? I just cannot get it. I just cannot produce a nice watercolour. I don't know. I don't know if it's the technique or what, but I just cannot do it. But not for the want of trying, and I will carry on trying. I've got absolutely no problems with failures and starting again. One other thing I do produce art-wise, and this is a real quirky one, I like to paint with coloured beeswax using a travel iron as my paintbrush on the shiny card. It's called encaustic art, encaustic meaning obviously involving heat, and I use a small travel iron, different coloured beeswaxes, and I paint with the travel iron. It's a fantastic technique, not very well known, and I've done some of that, and I've sold some of those paintings, and they're only small. We're talking postcard sizes, and I've got that down to a good art, that one. And another thing I do, talking of watercolours, do you know what? I troll the charity shops. You know, in the charity shop at the back in the corner, you've always got a box full of frames, picture frames, and some of them have still got the pictures in. And if I see one and it's a watercolour, not a print, but an actual watercolour, I buy it. I mean, they want like £2 or whatever. I buy it, and I've got a stack of watercolour paintings, mainly scenic type paintings, but I buy them. Now, I haven't got a clue who the artists are. Like, you can see the signatures and that. And sometimes I'll Google the artist and nothing ever comes up. But I love to collect these watercolours. I don't know, I suppose a little part of me wants to find that nugget, you know, that golden nugget in a charity shop where they've got a box of old paintings and whap, out comes a Monet or a Van Gogh. No, I know that's not going to happen, but I tell you what, I've got some lovely artwork. None of it on show. It's all in my loft in folders, etc. But just one of those little things I do, and you never know. I may be rescuing some good art from a lost artist. Someone, you know, somewhere is looking for that artist's lost painting, and I've got it in my loft. I don't know, but that's it. I think I've covered everything everyone mentioned. Round to you, Justin. G8YTZ. No, it isn't, is it? Sorry, it's round to David. Justin, you handed it to me. A G0KPZ M0JCF in the Cray Valley group.
Yeah, from G0KPZ, yeah. Very interesting, Mark. I followed you there all the way through. Working backwards again, I love the idea of you saving the watercolours. One of the things I've done, not for a few years now, but I've managed to bag myself some nice, decent frames by doing that. Where not nicking frames off of original art, but nicking frames off of just prints that were being sold off cheap. So I've got some decent frames, although I tend not to frame my paintings these days. I tend to have them on canvas, and I think they look all right just on the canvas. But there you go. Watercolour, yeah, no, watercolour. I do as much watercolour as I do oils. It's much more difficult, I think, watercolours than oils. You make a mistake on oils, you can scrape it off. If you can't scrape it off, you wait for it to dry and you paint over it. Watercolours, once it's gone to the paper, it stains the paper, and that's it. You're stuck with it. You either have to work around it, work with it, or give up and start again, or do what I do sometimes and cheat like crazy and then go and get a tube of gouache and go over it with that. But at that point, it doesn't. It's no longer a proper watercolour, and if you look carefully, you can see that it's actually got some opaque paint on it rather than translucent watercolour. I'd have a go with it, Mark. I wouldn't worry. My advice would be the same advice I give to anybody, and I don't give advice really. Don't give unsolicited advice, etc., etc. But what I would say to someone, rather than advise them, is just to have a go and do your own thing. Because at the end of the day, you start off by copying or by being helped. But what you're trying to do is at some point to change over to actually doing your own thing. So if you don't know what you're doing in the first place, just have a go at it. All you got to remember is that, you know, and I'm sure I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs, is that, you know, with the oils you're painting from dark to light generally, not always, but generally. But with watercolours you're painting the other way around. You're starting with the light, finishing with dark. And if you want white, you've got to use the paper. One of the things I used to use sometimes, but I haven't used it for ages, is that stuff that you paint on areas of the painting. It's like a rubber. It's like a white liquid rubber solution. And it sticks to the paper, and you can paint over it. And then later on, when you want to, when you get to the stage where you're finishing or whatever, you rub it off with your fingers, and you've left with the white of the paper underneath. So if there's areas that you need to go over and you want to keep them white, rather than having to paint round them and suffer the possibility of, you know, water either going over the white or ruining your kind of wash, you just put the rubber solution on, and once it's dry you can paint over it. The other one you mentioned, what was it? Encozy or something? Never heard of that. That's a new one on me. Sounds really interesting. And the other thing is, like, you know, selling your stuff. Well, for me, watercolours are not too bad. They're fairly quick, although sometimes it take a bit of time. But my oil paintings, they've got so much detail in them. And the way I paint means I have to leave to dry and then come back. Means that sometimes they take weeks, and they certainly are tens and tens and tens and tens of hours painting them. So, you know, the thought of spending like a week, 2 weeks on a painting, and hours, and then sort of selling it really cheap, you know, I don't fancy that. So unfortunately, either I keep it, or I'd need to charge a fair amount of money for it to get the, you know, value from all the hours that I spend doing it. So that's an interesting conundrum. That's it. So yeah, your signal's obviously dropped. Excuse me, Mark. Since you swung the beam round, you dropped from everybody up to now has been lighting all the segments up. So I don't know, 30 plus or something on here. But you dropped down to about 5 and 7, and there was a bit of flutter, and you dropped to 5 and 5. I switched across to the beam, and you came back a bit, but I didn't swing the beam round, pointing in your direction. So a little bit of cross polarization there. Anyway, we're moving on. I never understood this witching hour of 11 o'clock. I didn't know where it was written into the net that, you know, we should only do an hour and finish at 11. Although I suspect we bored the pants off of people if we go on for too long. But I never understood why we needed to wrap up at 11. Maybe if someone knows, they can explain that. And we've gone past. But the few of us that have been on have made use of the time today, and it's been interesting chat today. So thanks everyone. Really enjoyed today's net. I'm passing it round to Frank. Frank, you got lovely signal as always. And I'm sorry you had to sit there in the background listening to us waffle before you were able to get in. So G0FDP to take it from G0KPZ and the Cray Valley Group.
G0KPZ from G0FDP in the Sunday morning 2 metre net. Yep. Well, when I used to run the net, there was no particular time to finish. We just finished when everybody stopped chatting. That was the main thing. We had no sort of thing to say that, oh, it's the witching hour and at 11 o'clock. No, once you got to 11 o'clock, you just carried on until somebody stopped chatting. And if somebody wanted to join the net at 5 past 11, you'd let them in and let them have a go as well. But that's I don't know whether it's Dave NRH's way of doing it now, but he's the one that does the running of this. I don't run the net now like I used to because my memory's not as good as it used to be. I have to write a few things down because I can't remember what I wrote. I can't even remember what I wrote down there, so I've got to look at my bit of paper and see what's on there. Right. Well, the first thing I wrote down on the bottom there is, this is from Mark. You got an FT101, not the FT101ZD or the FT101Z or whatever the case. I used to have just the FT101. That's all it was, a 101. Nothing else, just 101. And it was an analog readout, and it used to run 100 watts. It had all the bands on it. The auxiliary band, which somebody who had the radio before me had obviously changed the auxiliary band at the bottom to 160 to make it an extra band on it. So that's what I had on that one. But I had it for quite a few years actually. He went to Bournemouth with me, and I used to use it down there, and brought it back home again. And for some unknown reason, because with the house I used to live in, which is well, it was not a townhouse, it was a masonette really. We didn't have no garden or nothing other. What I used to do with that FT101 was run a long wire out across the garage space, and the counter for us to sort of to use it. And after a while, for some unknown reason, the actual output power went on it. The transmit on the 101 went on it, and I had to give it up. I'd give it to somebody to repair for me, and I've never seen since then. I need to go in the right, put it this way, my right balls up it, I think. I should have done what I first have done in the first place was, if I'd have known all about this then, the guy is the one that would repaired it for me. Or even now you say, Steve, Steve could have repaired it for me. No problem at all. It's a lovely radio. I know it's analog, but I did buy a frequency counter for it, so that I could actually tune it with the frequency counter at the same time. So that's what I used to do when I did have it. I've still got the frequency counter here somewhere in one of the drawers somewhere. But I haven't got. I worked quite a few stations on that. I used to work across the pond on it, on that 101 to my wife's cousin who lives in Ohio, and used to work a few of the other stations over there in the States. And we had quite a nice little chat on that particular one. This was from my own QTH when I used to live in Lee. That's LEE Lee, SE12. Used to live down there. We used to have a townhouse down there, and because I had a beam on top of the roof. It was a flat roof, so I could put a beam up, and I had the beam pointing in the direction of would it be northwest, wouldn't it? Northwest. So because the curvature of the Earth, it was northwest, and it would go right round to where I actually wanted to work somebody, and that's what I did there. Right, that's a bit for that. What else have I got down here? Well, I actually passed, when I went to school, I left school in, you'll think I'm hot, but I am bloody old, that's the trouble. I left school in 1956. That's a long time ago. And I passed at maths, metal and woodwork, because they're the three things that I used to like to do. Wasn't clever at English, but I know how to write, but I'm not quite good at the actual spelling of English sometimes. But that's how I got on there. I did do one of them courses, which they do at the schools in them days. There's a course that you can do if you want. When you get to an age where you can go out and go to work. There's a course here, and the only course they had left for me was bloody secretary's job, typewriting. I thought, oh my God, that's all I got. I'll have to do that then. So that's what I've done in the end, typewriting. And I wish I'd kept it up really, because it's good, because you can typewrite them days. You can typewrite and they put something over your hand so you couldn't see what you're clicking on the keys. And they used to do it to music, so you used to go, and it was quite handy. But after the years, I sort of left it to one side and forgot all about it. Because in my latter years, I joined the London Ambulance Service. And that's where I started doing a bit of radio as well, because they've got radios on the ambulance service. And that's how I got to working on the radio itself, with my wife encouraging me to get onto an amateur and talk to my cousin in America. That's how it worked out. Right, I know I've waffled. It's not really the end of the net, but carry on. And if you want to add anything to it, and you can do. I forgot to tell you now about the FT 726R, which I had. I did have it. It was a nice radio to start with, but as I said, it went wrong on the microphone side. I think the controls that operate the mic were up the creek. They needed, what Guy told me when he'd done it for me, he opened up the box, got his spray stuff out, and he got it working again. So I could have done that with myself if I'd have had it at the time. But there we are. I didn't at the time. Anyway, enough waffle for me now. At the moment, I'll pass it back round to now is G8YTZ. Justin, head of the 2-metre net today. Over to you, Justin, from G08 FTP.
Yeah, from G8YTZ, and there we go. You got 600 watts coming at you now on horizontal, so hopefully that's a little bit stronger there, Mark. So I peak you up on the beam and send that. It didn't make any difference when you turned the beam before. But yeah, polarization cross loss makes a big difference. Lots of dBs, tens of them. So in theory, infinite. But there we go. You always get a little bit of twisting going on, don't you? Anyway, I'm going to leave it for now. I've got a few things to do. That's why I'm going to drop out. So I'll let you guys carry on chatting. But back on to you, Mark. M0JCF, G8YTZ.
Yeah, G8YTZM0JCF. Well, I'm sticking to my 10 watts and beaming your direction horizontally. How does that sound? You're 600 watts. I'm sending you the bill for the needle. But how does that sound there? Back to you, Justin.
Oh, your S9 when I beam on you, yeah, it's absolutely fine. The audio quality is good as well.
Yeah, what I did do as well, I backed off the microphone gain a bit because I have got a gob on me. All right, then, Justin, well, thanks for running the net. As I say, I switched on, I was a minute or two late and I heard you calling and I thought, oh, Justin's in the chair. Now, I don't know if that was by design or you joined because, you know, you and I, we normally join early when we join and Dave is normally faffing around and he grabs the microphone and says, oh, you're a bit early, but you're on the list. And I didn't know how it was going, if he'd asked you to do it or if you just came in early, put out a call and just to see if anyone would turn up. But thanks for running it anyway. I say 4 of us on with quite an eclectic mix of subjects there, which was quite nice. And of course, the thing that helps is obviously from the arty point of view. You know, David being an artist and me being a wannabe artist. You know, it gave us something to talk about. If it was just me and, you know, and I pick up the microphone, what have I been doing this week? Oh, I'll paint you the picture and then bored the nads off you by just talking about my painting, you know. I mean, people are interested. Don't get me wrong. I talk to people about art and other hobbies that I've got outside of amateur radio. You know, like when I was drag racing and before that when I was road racing and before that when I was speedway, you know, 3 different motorcycle disciplines. Completely different from each other, but you always found somebody that even though they weren't into motorcycles, they were actually interested, you know. So yeah, it doesn't happen often, and you know, if you bore people, they'll normally tell you sort of in short shrift that you're boring them, or you see them glaze over, that sort of thing. But yeah, to reiterate there, David, encaustic art is what you want to look for. And the books, I've got a couple of books on the subject when I started encaustic art by a person called Michael Bossum. Now think of the word blossom as in flowers and remove the L, and there you go. You can find by Googling now encaustic art and Michael Bossum, and you should get an idea of the technique, etc. Yeah, it's quite unique. It's different. I will post in the WhatsApp group. I know several of you aren't in it, but I will. I've got some of my encaustic art here. I will take a photograph and post it up. But yeah, I've been quite successful selling that. More successful than probably selling my my oil. When I think about the money that I've spent on oil paintings and the amount of art that I've given away, you know, it's certainly, I'm never going to be a rich man being an artist. But then, apart from the obvious ones, you never do see a well-dressed rich artist, do you? I think that's one of the common traits. And yeah, masking medium was that rubber stuff. Yeah, I've tried using that as well. With, I think what I need to do, I need to revisit the watercolors, Dave. And you're quite right. Yeah, I know the various techniques of building from light to dark, whereas oil, I mean, sometimes oil painting, I've started with a black canvas, you know, and gone in that direction. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As I say, Terry Harrison and what was the other bloke I said? Jeff Kelsey. They were the 2 artists that I sort of followed as teachers per se, to get me going. I think I need to revisit the watercolor at some point. But I'm in no rush at this moment in time. As I say, 101 hobbies, 1,001 things to do, and I need to sort of settle down at some point. But forget other hobbies. Like at the moment I'm quite consumed with the amateur radio, both the physical restoration and building side and everything, and of course I do a lot of CQing, especially on 10 meters, 12 meters, so you know, so and that's why the restorations have been slower. I go out into the garage or go into the loft with all good intentions to start building and or restoring or repairing or whatever, and then I pick up a microphone and I start chatting. I'll make this my last one as well. I have recorded this one. We've been going for an hour and 23 minutes. I will convert it, and I'll reduce the size of the file because it will be multiple gigs big. I'll put it on my YouTube channel as always, and for the delights of everyone and anyone that wants to hear what they sounded like, etc. Or for those that weren't on the net, maybe they want to join in on the video or listen or watch the video and realise what a faux pas they made by not joining us today. So anyway, that was it. Best 73 to everyone. Enjoy Father's Day if you are a father, and or if you've got a father, and everything else in between. I'll hand it round to you for the final time, David. G0KPZ M0JCF in the net. Good afternoon, good morning and good evening to everyone.
Yeah, from G0KPZ. Yeah, so, yeah, thanks everyone. Really enjoyed today. Yeah, the one thing I was going to say about the FT101 without the numbers, without the letters, or even the ones with the letters, in other words, pre-Z, because it's a different radio, it's certainly in the output stage, isn't it? So, and everybody knows this, but the big difference is that they've got the old TV sweep valves in them, the 6SJ, blah, 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 whatever they are. And they're rare and expensive, and you have to be wary of buying the non-original Japanese ones, because they work and then they blow up. So that what you know, my record. Well, I've got one as well. I think I've got an E, which works absolutely fine. But I think they put out more power than the ZDs. I think the ZDs with the standard, and I can't remember the name of the valve at the top of the head because my memory's shot as well. They put out 100, but the 101 original TV sweep valves put out 180. So they are, I think, when I've used them both, I've had quite a few of both. I always did think the original 101 would put out more signal than the later one. But I suspect, where I'm going with this is, I suspect that the radio, the valves are probably worth more than the radio there, because they're so difficult to get hold of, and they're disappearing, obviously, because no one makes them, I don't think. Anyway, lovely to talk today, and I've made a note, Mark, of Encaustic and Michael Bossum. I'll have a look at it because I've never seen it before, so that's I'll have a butcher's of that on the internet in a minute. So yeah, cheers everyone, really good today, and maybe catch you next week if I'm around. So I'll put it round to Frank as the last one on the list, and this, I'll say 73s make this my final as well. So round to you, Frank, G0FTP from G0KPZ.
Yep, okay there, Dave. I'll get it right now. G0KPZ, G0FTP. This is my mind's going bonkers at the moment. But anyway, well done on the FT101. Yes, I know it's a good radio with good valves in it, but it's one of the valves that bloody well went when I had it. So I tried to get some new valves for it, but I probably got the wrong ones. They probably want the right ones for it. But there we are. That's how it seemed to work out. Never mind. It's one of them things. I haven't got the 101 now. It's gone. But I wish I still had it. But there we are. That's one of them things. Anyway, we've all had a nice chat. It's nearly 11:30. And as I'm the last on the list, I'm not chief of the 2 metre lap, but I'm last on the list. And I shall say 73 to those that was on. That's Justin, G8YTZ, yourself, G0KPZ, and myself. Saying 73s to everybody that was on. It was a nice chat, and we had a good morning's talk about something or other to make it last this long. Okay, from G0FTP, just listening briefly, then going QRT myself.
No, nothing was heard. M0 JCF now clear. I believe this frequency is clear for use. The frequency is clear for use.
73's mark, it's 11:29 according to my clock.